Hello friends, my name is Ksana and today I wanted to talk with you about traits of autistic spectrum disorder in kids, or to be more specific about traits that I had when I was a kid and how they actually changed with age. This video might be helpful for those of you who suspect that your kid has an autism. Looking back on my childhood, I realized that back then I had much more expressed autistic traits than now. Due to my masking skills, that has increased a lot since then. However, I still was missed due to this difficult situation that my family had been going through, and also I don't think that our doctors were educated enough to spot mild autistics. And to be honest, I'm glad I wasn't diagnosed as a kid, since parents tend to be over-fixated on their children when they get the autism diagnosis, and usually they perceive it as a tragedy. I'm also absolutely against the most popular therapy for autistic children called ABA therapy, because in my opinion it's absolutely immoral therapy that only leads to psychological trauma, and it makes parents and children believe that there is something wrong with them and they must be cured. A therapy where children are treated like dogs, learning new tricks for a treat. Like looking in the eyes or forcing to listen to loud noises, which is actually painful for some kids with autism. It only makes children to hide their pain and discomfort in order to be more comfortable for other people, but it actually can't cure anything because, first of all, autism isn't a disease, and it's important to keep in mind. It can't be cured. It's all about our brain perceiving information in the world differently than the majority of people. And I'm so glad I was born in a family where I wasn't upbringing in an atmosphere of being broken. In my case, figuring out the diagnosis as an adult was the best thing that helped me to understand myself better and why the world was so much struggle. And this is what the diagnosis must be for parents too. A tool for understanding their children and for helping them to understand themselves throughout their life. Well, I think it's time to get back to my childhood traits of autism, but first I want to mention that every autistic human being is absolutely different and has its own unique set of traits. I'm going to tell you only about my traits and experience. I think everything started when I was a baby. I was an extremely silent baby. I didn't cry even if I needed something or I was hungry, and it immediately makes me think about alexithymia, that is difficulty to express and feeling emotions. Like from the very first days, I didn't know naturally how to communicate, but it's only my theory. I had a speech delay. It took me longer to learn how to speak than for other kids, and I had a selective mutism, which means I couldn't speak in certain situations. Sometimes adults called me rude because I didn't answer their questions or say hello, but I was simply just paralyzed and couldn't speak even if I wanted to. Sometimes I couldn't communicate with other kids when they were trying to speak with me. And again, since I didn't attend kindergarten, there was nobody who could spot these traits in me. And usually people perceived this as shyness, but actually it wasn't. I usually didn't speak even with my mom when there were people around us. I only could whisper to her if I really needed something, so nobody could hear me. Somehow from the very little age I tried to be invisible, to not inflict any trouble or inconvenience to other people. So I was silent, both verbally and physically. When I got older, it became better with selective mutism. I was able to speak with other kids. I was trying to make friends, but usually it was really awkward. I didn't know how to behave and how to build relationships. Very often, other kids and girls, and especially their games, seemed really weird to me. Games that were interesting for other kids weren't interesting for me at all. I was too obsessed with my own interests, like drawing and animals. I couldn't understand how and why to play with dolls, for example. And there is another trait. I couldn't play imaginative games. My imagination skill didn't allow me to join games like this, where you have to create some kind of scenario or social situation. Instead, I was in love with animal figurines, and I liked to look at the tiny details and to place them in some kind of pattern. Once I tried to repeat a little scene from the Lion King movie, but it was so boring for me that I didn't try it again, and I really couldn't imagine any scenario by myself. Another favorite way of spending time for me was arranging books and plates and other stuff in the house in lines. I could spend hours just organizing things around me. Going back to socialization, I was feeling like a blank page when I was with other people. I felt like I have absolutely nothing to give, and I was feeling like an absolutely boring person, and that led me to the mimicking. When I was communicating with other kids, I was trying to chameleon their habits and way of speaking and behavior, and it's all about my lack of communication skill. It just didn't come naturally to me. And also I thought that if I will have the same interest, I will become more interesting too. So for example, I liked red color, but my friend liked the purple. So I thought that I have to like the purple too, and that will make me more interesting. But actually I hated the purple color. Extreme candidness was another trait of little me. There was a situation in the 4th grade when someone gave me a questionnaire and I was trying to answer as honest as possible, and I wrote the name and the grade of the boy that I liked back then. So you can imagine how I was bullied for that. I couldn't stand tight clothes, like tights, sweaters with turtleneck, wool sweaters, and so on. It was torture for me to wear clothes like this. I even developed some tics because of it. From the very childhood, I couldn't stand some noises, and they're still painful for me. For example, if someone is scratching the plate or the kettle with a spoon, the sound of the marker scratching the paper, the intense sound of people's voices when they're in the same room and are close to me, and so on. However, I'm not very sensitive to background noises, which might be in the shopping mall, for example. It makes me feel tired, but they're not painful as noises that I described before. I think it's worth mentioning that I was in love with any kind of spinning, and I still am. I don't feel dizzy even after an hour of spinning. In autism, there might be 2 conditions, hypersensitivity and hyposensitivity. When you're undersensitive to some things, and spinning might be one of them. When I was trying to write in the diary, it never was a success. Привет. Да. I didn't know what to write, I didn't have any thoughts or conclusions or things that I wanted to tell, but it always seemed so cool for me to have a diary, but it wasn't my thing at all. I tried to write some everyday events, but they seemed as a soulless facts to me, and I couldn't find anything else in my head. I have a whole video about blank mind syndrome where I speak about this problem of mine, so if you're interested, I will leave a link if you want to learn about it more. Another trait was my fixation on lions. I was obsessed with Lion King movies and lion figurines. I'm so sorry if there will be sounds of my cat who is cleaning himself. I can't do nothing with it. I was drawing an endless amount of illustrations with lions, and all these illustrations were absolutely alike, and I wasn't tired of drawing one and the same thing again and again. I also was watching one and the same movie for the prolonged amount of time, just because I was obsessed with characters. It also was like a source of role models for me. I always wanted to be alike with my favorite characters. I dreamed to become a lion from the Lion King movie universe. There was a period in my life when I was mimicking a cat, and once I ate the bug, and since then I really do not recommend it. Before I went to school, there were people who kept telling that I have to attend a special school because of my problems with speaking. But still I went to the ordinary school. I really had issues with studying, I had very poor memory, especially working memory. It was hard to read and understand what I was reading, it was hard to listen and understand teachers. Studying always was a very hard process for me. I must have spent much more time for the same tasks than my contemporaries. Well, I think it's interesting to try to describe how I felt as an autistic kid. My special interests never made me feel bored. I always had what to do even when I was at home for days. But I felt really lonely because I couldn't find friends or build relationships. I felt like a blank page and an absolutely unattractive person when I was communicating with other people. I felt awkward and like I don't fit in. But in the world of my interest I felt fulfilled. But nobody understands me and I didn't understand others. I was constantly learning from other kids and from the movies how to behave, how to love, and what to wear. I was constantly learning how to fit in. Also, I wanted to speak about what actually has changed with age. First of all, I don't have selective mutism anymore. Фибушка. First of all, I don't have selective mutism anymore, but still, sometimes I feel as I did when I was a kid. But since it's not socially acceptable for an adult to not respond, I force myself to tell at least something. I think this is one of the things that I learned to mask with time. I'm still afraid to be loud or to make somebody uncomfortable. Now I can't draw one and the same thing again and again, and after my 20s I also stopped to rewatch movies. Of course, except Harry Potter. I don't try to mimic my friends or characters anymore since I accepted my own personality. But I still chameleon people that I'm communicating with. I still adore when everything is placed in lines and everything has its own place. But I think that my apartment is not as tidy as it was when I was a kid. I'm not fixated on lines anymore. My special interest is still animals, but not specifically lions. I still do have strong fixations, but they change every couple of months or years. I have a video about my autistic traits as an adult female, and I will leave a link to it also in the description. I do have a husband and friends now who accept me the way I am, even though I'm not very much talkative. I still have problems studying and learning languages, and I have many executive function issues. I learned to look into the people's eyes even if it's not always so comfortable for me. As I said, I'm glad I wasn't born into the different family where I could look more standing out, and that I was upbringing the way I was, where I wasn't treated like a weirdo or a freak of a family who must be cured. I know I have issues as an adult. I can't go to the job where I will be surrounded by people or where I should have to communicate and speak with clients. I can't do phone calls without rehearsing my speech for half a day. I have issues now learning to drive because of my lack of attention, but there are also many positive moments that I treasure. If you liked this video or my other videos, you can support me on Patreon. I will leave a link to it in the description. Any support will be much appreciated. Also, I have a shop with my art, so you can also check it out in the description. I hope this video was entertaining or helpful for you. Thank you so much for watching this video until the end, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye!